finalized, and it is no doubt that she is presenting to you this afternoon. She has a very strong interest in research and publication and is actively engaged in that. This afternoon, she will share with you conversations that you can conduct in your different classroom, in different learning space to diverse learners. She has a very sound theoretical underpinning to the practical understandings that she will share with you. So I will delay no further and at this point invite Mrs. Reed Virtue to share with you. If you have questions, please feel free to put them in your chat, and I will take them after the session. I do look forward to it, and I hope that you will enjoy and you will benefit from it. Mrs. Reed Virtue.
Thank you, Dr. Wilmot. Good afternoon, everybody. I do hope you are well, you are safe, and you're healthy. And I hope that so far, those of you who have been attending sessions from morning, we thank you for joining us, and we hope that you've been finding the sessions very beneficial. We are going to look at our theme, sub-theme, Unmute, Inclusive Talk for Diverse Learners in the Virtual Language Arts Classroom. And I want to thank you for joining me in this session. Now I am going to share my screen as I speak to some points that we'll be looking at this afternoon. And of course, this is a workshop, so I'm expecting that I will be getting some responses from you in our chat. So let us keep it as enlivened as possible. I know that some of the experiences that I will raise, many of you can probably, relate to what we're going to talk about this afternoon as we seek to problem solve and have our students engaged in the best virtual academic experience with which we can provide them. So let me just pull up my slides so you can look at what I am seeing. All right. Now, there are some memes being shared, very creative memes that capture some of the struggles of teachers. And I want to know if some of you are having this particular experience. Are you one of those teachers who, when you were in the face-to-face classroom, you have had experiences where you've had to tell students, oh, be quiet, talk, in turns, too much noise, students settle down one at a time, and then online class started, and you are there begging to hear from someone because your students have now gone silent, and you sound as if you're in a cave. Hello, 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 anybody there? Why are our students silent? That's the question. Tell me in the chat, do you have any such experience? Do you find that your students have gone silent and have gone silent for too often? And it scares you, you feel alone in virtual land. I see Central Morgan saying, oh yes. Anybody else? Are you left in cyber by your students? You're wondering if they're there. Are they engaged? Are they really grasping? Oh, Indira says every day. Oh my goodness. Indira, I can relate. Yes. Anybody else? Do you have any such experience? I want to know if I'm talking to the right people here. Can you relate? Do your students refuse to engage sometimes when you call on them and you wonder if they're busy, preparing breakfast or something like that? All right. Now, what we want to focus on this afternoon, sometimes we may be impulsive to think, oh, the students aren't interested in learning. Oh my goodness, why aren't they disciplined and professional enough to ensure that they participate online? All right, we've gone through that process. Probably they need to do some more work on their part, yes. But have we stopped to ask ourselves, am I bringing the best experiences that cater to the students' diverse academic needs and interests? Is it my approach that is causing the students not to talk? Am I thinking about who I am teaching and how I seek to engage them online? And so this afternoon, we are going to have a conversation about how we can involve diverse learners in the virtual language arts classroom. And in the context of special education, we're contemplating those students who are at the extreme end of the continuum, those students who struggle with the use of language. How do we involve them? Perhaps they aren't talking to us, they aren't engaging in conversations because they do not have the language to express ideas. And what kinds of conversations do we seek to involve them in, right? So these are some questions to answer. We do not want to be the teachers who, when our students get up, they say, oh, we hear voices. And then the student realizes, but it's just my online teacher, so the student goes right back to sleep. Or we start with our students very present, and in the middle of the lesson, they begin to fade, the voices fade. Then they completely disappear, and here we are left alone, waiting and waiting patiently. See that skeleton there? Indeed, I think you can relate. Now, if you were to create a meme to represent your struggle, what would your meme say? Tell me in the chat. What would your meme say if you were to create a meme to represent your experience with teaching online? Let me see, because if you all think you're just going to join this afternoon and I'm the only one talking, no, we're here to talk about engagement through discourses, conversations, talk. So think about it and type in the chat. What would your meme say? And Natisha says, when I hear this cry from my peers, I have to thank God for my students because I don't have that issue to deal with. Well, awesome, Natisha. And I think that you are going to share some of what you do, your methodologies. You could share with us how you engage your students to, prevent your having to go through this kind of experience. All right, while you are thinking about your creative meme, let me just move on to the next slide. So we ask, why are students silent? Here are 4 questions to consider. Does your approach to involving students in classroom talk appeal to students' interests or preferences? Are activities and contexts for talking differentiated to cater to students' competencies, academic competencies, so varied abilities? Is your methodology too autocratic or inflexible? Do the students have to respond to you? No. Or can they respond at a later time? Do we take an offense when we are online with our students and they don't respond during the synchronous session? Do we give consideration to the fact that there are different ways of talking? They can talk orally, through writing, through pictures, through graphic representations, videos. Do they really have to talk to you? No. And if so, are you being an autocratic teacher and it becomes a turnoff for your diverse learners in the virtual classroom? And what kind of culture for talking did you create from the onset? Who did most of the talking? Do you have some very brilliant students in your group? And they are the ones who are always responding. And so you've created the culture or the mindset in others that they don't need to say anything because the brighter students or the more willing students will participate. It's okay, we can be silent. Well, what we aim for is involving those students who may be feeling left behind, those students who may not have the kinds of confidence and personalities of other students, and we really want to engage them. And so let us look at different types of talk. Teacher-dominated talk, we know this one, right? The teacher asks questions and steers the students in the direction of the answers that he or she would want. Is this the reason why our students aren't talking? Because we aren't facilitating their perspectives, we aren't facilitating their experiences. Our special needs students, do they feel left behind because they do not think that they are thinking at the level of the teacher, and so might as well they don't participate? Are we making use of the age-old IRF pattern, initiation, response, feedback, where we ask the question, the students answer, and we give feedback about whether or not, the student's response is correct? And then we notice that the IRF has been criticized, that it is only or more so effective for finding out factual information, but this style of questioning really does little to engage higher order thinking. So because we have students who may be struggling in our classes, do we underestimate their abilities? And that is why we are using the IRF, where we keep them on the surface of regurgitating information, and they do not feel challenged. So might as well they don't even participate, because everybody knows the literal or the declarative content already. They aren't bringing any new perspective. So might as well they relax. They can go and read the notes, right? Or are we engaging them in extended conversations? So it's not a simple yes or no. When our students do unmute, do we capture them for a period of time where we probe and we add questions to the initial one that we have expressed? And so we have them thinking in depth. Is our classroom talk dialogic? We engage students in constructive conversations. They get to explore, become excited at learning. What kinds of talks are we having? Do our students get the opportunity to engage in self-probing? Do we leave them to reflect on information? The next class they come, do we have a continuity of conversations? Or do we leave our classes feeling disjointed? There is no flow. Do we have them examining learning to realize what they understand and how their perspectives might have changed? So all of these talks, except IRF and teacher-dominated talk, of course, warrant that we engage our students on critical thinking levels, no matter their academic competencies. All students are thinkers. And if we recognize that there are different opportunities available in lessons to involve students at different points, then we can make very good use of effective activities to engage our diverse learners. And so, yes, talking in class is important. It is serious matter. It's not just about having your students saying something. So students' involvements in classroom talk should be the result of a teacher's careful and deliberate planning. We should be considering the objectives to achieve. Where in the lessons will the students talk? What will be the nature of this talking? And who will talk, right? Do we realize that the same students are responding all the time? And even though there are students who may, want to be left alone, do we still call on them? We don't want anybody to feel left out or that the lesson can happen without them. And so today we're going to look at different types of talking for the online context. Of course, some of what we do in the face-to-face modality we transport to online learning. So we have the synchronous talking when the teacher is online with the students. The asynchronous one, the students don't necessarily have to always talk now. We don't have to always make them feel like this is an autocratic class, and if I don't say anything today, Miss is going to be upset about it. They could do talking asynchronously. Students post or record ideas or responses outside of online classes, all right? Individual talk. Students produce individual and independent thinking. And then there are those students who, because they do not have the language ability, they might want to collaborate where they combine their thoughts and perspectives. So this is one methodology where you can engage those students who may be shy to respond independently, but you still have the opportunity to capture their points of view. Graphic talk, as mentioned, through visuals or pictures that support their thoughts, and reflective talk, which was already mentioned. Now, I am going to share with you a sample lesson plan that illustrates how different types of talking can be included in a lesson to involve diverse learners. I pitched the lesson at grade 7, subject language arts. And of course, it's a mixed ability group, students ranging from students who competently manipulate the language, English language, to those who struggle to maintain use of the standard variety. And we also give consideration to the fact that some of our students are from varied socioeconomic backgrounds, and of course, they come with varied personalities and interests. So I'm going to move on to this slide. For our teachers who are here, whether in training or in service, I want you to look at these 5 activities displayed on the screen. And based on what you know about the procedural development of a lesson, how would you organize these activities? What would come first, second, third, fourth, fifth? And you could just capture a phrase from each bullet to tell me the order in which you would sequence these activities. I know that I have all the bright people in this session, you know. All right, so I give you a minute. Look at these activities and tell me how you would sequence them in a lesson. Then we're going to talk about how these activities help us to facilitate different types of talking in our virtual spaces. How can we use activities to allow our students to feel included and appreciated? We want them to know that their voices are important and their thoughts are important. All right, let me see if any response. Unable to view the last bullet. Okay. Let me pull up my screen. So the last bullet says the students will be assigned to Microsoft Teams breakout rooms to examine a sample descriptive paragraph to note details that appeal to the assigned senses. So the breakout rooms will be labeled as senses. All right, Indira, noting 1, 2, 4, 5, and 3. Okay, anybody else? Uh, okay, Central, YouTube video, then the students look at descriptions, images, Microsoft Teams, and then differentiated tasks. All right. Okay. So, Central, you are a little closer. So, YouTube videos, then the students look at the interesting paragraphs, to determine which one is more interesting. And they're taught about functions of the use of imagery and spatial order, breakout session, and then we end with the differentiated tasks. Now, what I want you to tell me, which of these activities could be used to facilitate different types of talking? Remember, I said that when we are at the planning stage of our lesson, we need to determine what kind of talk we will have in our class. Why are we having the students talking? Who will talk and when? Serious consideration needs to be given. Why is it that we have students talking at the beginning of the lesson? What do we hope to achieve? What objective are we seeking to attain? So the YouTube video, the sharing of a YouTube video at the beginning of the class, students would view a scene and then they talk about their experiences and give descriptions. What kind of talking would be happening there? Would we have, is it a time for individual talking or is it collaborative? Is there anything to explore or extend at the engagement or introductory stage of the lesson? What do you think? When we look at the lesson plan, we will delve deeper. But based on these ideas, what kinds of talking do you think could be facilitated in a lesson about descriptive writing? Okay, Santrell says text to self connection, relating experiences to reading or viewing material, yes, individual and collective. All right, is there anybody else who wants to give a response? You can just mention one activity and state what kind of talking do you think that activity could facilitate? All right, I don't see any other response coming in yet. Yes? No? Okay. All right, Indira, determining the more interesting paragraph could generate a lot of talk. Yes, Indira, but what kind of talking will be happening? Yes, as students compare and contrast pics. All right, so are you thinking, Indira, that this is an activity that could facilitate exploratory talk? Give me a yes or no, so I know if we're on the same page. All right, okay, certainly, Indira. Thank you for your responses. Okay, we are moving on now to look at a sample lesson plan. Grade 7 students who have varied linguistic or language capabilities. Now, since we are operating online, we're operating online, we want to give thought to the kinds of technological tools or resources that we may use to effectively engage our students in different types of talking. And for this lesson, I chose a YouTube video of a tropical beach scene that would come at the engagement stage of the lesson. We would be using Microsoft Teams to facilitate the class. And I also included Flipgrid and Padlet. I am going to give you some more information about Flipgrid and Padlet when we get to the evaluation stage of the lesson to see how these tools may be used to facilitate our diverse learners and give them meaningful opportunities for engaging and talking. And remember that we are not delimiting the meaning of talking to just oral expressions of ideas, but including all those forms of presenting information that allows the teacher to gain access to students' understanding, and of course, catering to their learning styles and preferences to ensure that our classes do not become mundane and the students feel as if they want to keep their microphones on mute. We're here to motivate them to unmute their microphones to become included. Unmuting their voices, muting their brains. We want them engaged in every aspect. All right. Now, the ideas for differentiation. There is a descriptive paragraph that some students would write, and this task would appeal to the solitary learner, those students who want to work by themselves. Discussion and creation of pamphlet, which I'm going to explain, we would use Padlet for that, would appeal to the social learner, those students who appreciate working in groups, would give the students who don't have the linguistic capabilities to operate in mixed ability groups so they can gain some kind of assistance. Writing and speaking tasks would appeal to the verbal learners, videos and pictures, the audiovisual learners. Creation of a video would appeal to the kinesthetic learner. So as much as possible, we see how as many of our students can be engaged in virtual learning. So descriptive writing is the topic, focusing on the use of imagery, and of course the students will learn a little about how to organize their writing through the use of the spatial order. And here we look at the engagement of the lesson. So as some of you guessed, we would be starting with the YouTube video of the tropical beach scene. Now, this type of talking, of course, it doesn't pose a lot of pressure on the students, right? They would be relating their experiences, they would be giving descriptions, talking about how they feel, that's the organic image, etc. And from this moment, you know that because it's not extended talk, many students would want to participate here. But who sometimes will you choose to talk here? Because there are times when some students may want to give responses, but because there are other students in the class who are quicker than they are, maybe the first ones to talk. Do you want to leave it open, or do you want to select some students who would shy away from extended talking further in the lesson? And so you want to you want to use this stage of the lesson to ensure that those students who are usually dormant are engaged from the initial stage of the lesson. So who will talk? Then you move on to Exploration. The students will get 2 short descriptions to determine which is more interesting. Students will share their responses and justifications, and they will explain how they think imagery functions in descriptive writing. And when we are online, we have to remember the importance of discovery learning. So it shouldn't be the teacher-dominated talk where we tell the students everything. Now, because we have students in our class who are part of the special education core, we don't want them to feel as if we think that they aren't thinkers or they aren't capable of thinking. So we need to present them with the challenge. Now, look at descriptions 1 and 2, and you tell me in the chat, which one do you think is more interesting and why? What do you think would be some of the students' responses? And what kind of talk is this? Which description is more interesting and why? The first one, all right. Noted Indira, yes. What are some reasons? Yes, Indira is a bright student. I'm going to put Indira on pause now because I need other participants to talk. So I'm going over to Kay and Pinnock. See, real classroom happening this afternoon, you know. Madam Pinnock, why is number 1 the more interesting description? I have a feeling. Oh, I see Madam Pinnock typing away. All right, I'm waiting on your response to come in. Others can respond to, I see Stacy and Gunter, Keisha Smith-Davis, Natisha, yes, Natisha responded earlier. I haven't heard anything from Mrs. Aitken from Special Education Center. Donna Bailey, come on, man, talk to me. Don't treat me like how some students treat you. This is not revenge time now. Don't take it out on me. On mute by typing. All right, so Pinnock says it helps me to visualize and use my imagination among other senses to interact in the lesson. All right, so in other words, Pinnock, you're saying that the descriptions are very vivid. They paint the mental picture and you can experience this scene through your senses. Sensory details are more powerful in 1 than 2, certainly. And the comparisons that are used in descriptive 1 help to make it a better one. All right, now of course, this is one stage in the lesson where you can have extended and exploratory talk, right? So we want the students from the get-go to understand the function of imagery as expressed by you two in the chat, that it is used, imagery is used to engage the reader so that the reader feels as if he or she is a part of what is being described. We can paint or create mental pictures. Now, the students who do not have the requisite language abilities may not be able to write a full-fledged descriptive paragraph, but when you present them with samples or models of writing, it gives them an opportunity to see how language is used. And when we involve them in conversations about these kinds of pieces, we are giving them opportunities to be exposed to the language, and of course expecting that they would transfer some of what they learned to their own writing. And of course we know that speaking is a precursor for writing. So when we engage them in conversations about models of writing, of course we see the related benefit thereafter to when they seek to express their own thoughts. And of course, we have the explanation stage, and I'm moving quickly down to elaboration. Right here is an opportunity for collaborative talk. Sometimes our students are on mute because they don't really want to talk to us. And do they have to talk to us anyway? Okay, but we still want to know what they're thinking. So how do we get them talking if they're not talking to us, right? Now, Microsoft Teams, of course, we know that we can design breakout rooms. I think Zoom facilitates it as well. So for this lesson, the rooms will be labeled as senses. So some students will be going to auditory, some will be going to visual, others kinesthetic, etc. And the students will be examining a sample paragraph to identify the sensory details that are related to the sense that they got to look at. The groups, sometimes the teacher has to organize the groups to ensure that these groups contain students of mixed abilities, because you want those stronger students a part of the group with those ones who might struggle with the language. So students get to contribute their ideas outside of the large classroom space, then they return to share what they have spoken about. Sometimes students are bashful. They don't want to talk in the general group, but they will talk when they move into smaller spaces. And we have to ensure, like I said, that our virtual classrooms are not so autocratic where they feel as if they must talk to you and they must talk now. We just want them to talk, engage in meaningful conversations, and one way or the other, whichever methodology we use, we get an opportunity to gain access to their thoughts. And then we have our evaluation, where we have a list of differentiated activities. So those students who are solitary learners, that's their preference, they would probably opt to write a descriptive paragraph with details that appeal to at least 4 senses. And what about our students who struggle with the use of the language? What will we have them do? Can they write a full-fledged paragraph, or depending on their academic ability, will they manage just writing captions for pictures or matching sensory details to pictures? And do you consider this talking? Of course. They're talking on paper. When they do the matching, do you get to find out if they have learned anything in your class? Certainly, because if they match auditory details with the visual picture, then you know that something is off in the comprehension of the lesson. And so we have to ensure that we bear in mind students' academic abilities. We challenge them, yes, but to what extent? How well will they manage the challenge you have provided? In a mixed ability group, students will use Padlet to create a descriptive writing brochure, which includes ideas learned about descriptive writing, types of images, examples, functions, pictures. When we think about our diverse classroom, we have to bear in mind, like I said earlier, our students' socioeconomic backgrounds. So you will have to know your students. You will have to know the resources that they have access to. So who are the ones who are good at using technology? Who are the ones that have access to these technological resources? And because we do not want our students to feel as if, you know, because they don't have the resources, then they can't contribute. They're just going to be left out. Mix the groups. So we know that 2 students from Clarendon, they have access to the tools. Put another 2 who really don't understand how to use the technology. But they will see their ideas being represented in the final product, and that motivates participation. right? And then there is also Flipgrid that the students could use to record themselves, giving a description of a place. So those who don't want to write the paragraph, can we get access to what they understand? Certainly. They can be kinesthetically involved in creating this video on the outside, bringing nature in, moving around from one point to the next as they illustrate spatial order and all of that you would have taught in this lesson. And this is the idea of a lesson that could facilitate different types of talking. We realize that we have an activity for individual talk. We have collaboration. We have students engaged in working by themselves, right? And of course, we have students talking in different ways through the use of written language, orally, videos, pictures, etc. What do you think about this idea? Let me hear your feedback while I access Padlet to show you what it allows students to accomplish. While you think about your responses, you can create a Padlet account. Of course, your students would have to be notified about how to do this. Once they have a Gmail, they can create an account for free. And when they get in, they go to Make Padlet. There are different structures for the pamphlets or brochures that they would create. They would select a structure that they want. Let me move this out of the way. They would put in the information for the different parts of the pamphlet. And this allows the students to insert videos. They can put in pictures if they want, etc. It is a good tool. Let me go on to one that I started to just show you. All right, so the students would be typing in their information for the different columns. They save them, they can choose their backgrounds that they want, right? So they determine what they want to put into each column. And it works also like Google Docs. So you can have different students working on the document at the same time. So the students collaborate to ensure that their ideas are properly placed, edited, etc. So this is one tool that can be used. And Flipgrid allows the students to create videos. They can insert pictures as well. And they can transport clips of videos from other places to include in their video that they are making. All right, so that's another option for the students. Of course, as teachers in the virtual space, we would have to educate ourselves on some of these tools that are available to ensure that we can assist our students when we require them to use these tools, because some of them might not know how to manipulate the tools that we want them to engage in or with. All right, give me a moment here. Well, all right, I am going to play a short video clip that informs you about how students can use Flipgrid. Tell me if you are hearing.
Welcome to Flipgrid, a video discussion experience from Microsoft. In this video, we'll provide everything you need to know to get started as a student. First, you'll need to access your class topic. Click the link or enter the code you received from your educator on the free Flipgrid app or on any computer with a webcam via the Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome browser at flipgrid.com. Log into Flipgrid using your school account by clicking the Microsoft or Google login. Read the topic discussion prompt. You can click this button to launch Microsoft's Immersive Reader, which provides powerful reading assistance. Watch the topic media, explore any links, and then, when you're ready, click to add a video. Flipgrid's camera is filled with powerful tools to help tell your story. You can add a filter, frame, text, emoji, ink, and draw on a board. You can upload images or even videos from your camera roll. Record, review, and re-record as many times as you would like. You can screen record and stitch together multiple clips. When you're ready, click Next, snap a selfie, and then click Submit. Watch videos from your peers here, add text or video comments, and review feedback from your educator. And remember, you're incredible. You're smart, you're kind, and you are important.
Okay, I hope you were able to follow that video. Did you hear it? Let me know in the chat if you heard it. Okay, good. All right, so that's another tool. You would create an account and you would give your students the code for them to access whatever information that you want them to pay attention to. You can give your responses there, and of course to cater to those students who don't have access to these technological tools or don't know how to use them. When the other students have created their Flipgrid videos, of course you would want them to present them in class and involve the entire class in this kind of, diverse experience. And so in essence, unmute. We want our students to engage meaningfully in different types of classroom talk as we bear in mind our students' academic preferences and learning interests. We want our students to not only be left at the surface level of engaging with information, but be included in exploratory and extensive dialogue. And we have to ensure that our students who do not have the requisite language abilities, we give them opportunities to engage in different types of talking or conversations in our class. We do not want our students to feel exempted, but involved and valued. And this is the end of my presentation as we leave giving serious consideration to talking in the diverse virtual language arts classroom. I hope that you benefited well from this session.
Colleagues, that was really refreshing, wasn't it? I am open now to take questions for Mrs. Reed-Verty. Do you have anything that you'd want to share? Anything that you'd want to ask her so that, you're now unmuted. It's your time, your turn. Any question, you could put them in the chat or you could hold your hand up and we try to unmute you.
And Natisha, I'd like to hear what you're doing so well that your students are always unmuted. Tell us. We want to hear.
She was thanking God for not having a type of experience that most of us are having. So let's go look at Natisha now. Natisha, are you willing to share with us? Doesn't appear as if I am able to unmute Natisha. Where is my ITC? Because I'm certain what she has to say, a verbal response might be better. All right, let me make Natisha a presenter and see if she... Hey, Miss Natisha.
Good afternoon, colleagues. How are you?
You are unmuted, Miss Natisha. Would you like to share with us now?
Okay, good afternoon again, everyone. It's very simple. As Mrs. Reed Virtue said,
Share with us the ways in which you engage your students so they do not go mute on you in your online sessions. I've opened your microphone, so you may just speak.
all right, good afternoon, colleagues. It is very simple. The strategies that were presented today,
Natisha,
I'm speaking.
okay, we're not hearing Natisha. Any other question? Or any questions, rather? Indira is gone. Natisha was speaking. Oh, I wasn't hearing her at all. I'm so sorry, Miss Natisha. Do you want to try again? Others were hearing, but we weren't. Oh, okay. Well, if the others benefited, then that might be good. Natisha, would you want to continue?
Okay, good afternoon, colleagues. Are you hearing me now?
Yes, loud and clear. Loud and
All
clear.
right. So, for me, all of that Mrs. Reed Virtue was saying applied, because what I do from the very onset, I allow my students to realize that it is not a teacher-centered class. So everything isn't about me. And so telling them that we are no longer face to face, I can see their facial expressions. I can't see whether or not they understand what I'm teaching. So they have to verbalize this. So I use the word verbalize a lot in my class. And the students are expected that if they don't understand anything at any point in the lesson, they are to stop me there to ask their questions. Doing this same engagement. And one of the things that I find will allow the students, because as early as 7:30, I open my classroom for an 8 o'clock class. They are there.
Yes.
And the reason is that they never know what the lesson will be about. I don't teach in the same format at all times. So I don't do the same kind of engagement activity. So I'm not giving them a video all the time. Sometimes I will, you can move the 5 E's in any order that you want to get it. And so they are excited to come and see what is happening in the class.
Right.
So that I think for me, that is the main thing for the students. I allow them to speak. Every opinion matters. And I am trying to get them to understand that they just have to give evidence for whatever they have to say. Nobody is wrong. It's just that it needs a little bit of correction. And so last term to this term, I can speak to them and I can say, face to face, when I had you 2 years ago, I am seeing the growth in you, and I give them those kind of encouragement. So I think those things allow them to be excited about being in class.
Yes.
And sometimes as teachers, especially in this online space, we tend to do a lot of the talking. And if there's a silence for any period, if I ask a question and I don't get an answer immediately, sometimes I have to say, okay, guys, listen, all of you can't speak at one time, because everybody's jumping to answer the question. So I say, raise your hand, or someone say, Miss, my raise hand feature is not working. Can I raise my hand with an emoji in the chat or something? So I have to be doing all of that. So sometimes we have, like this morning, to be a part of this session today, I had a class where today, for the first time, I had a no speaking class. Synchronous, they are online, they are working, but then we communicate everything in the chat. So everybody had to speak in the chat. So you have to make sure that you make it a little bit creative in your approach. Don't allow the students to know what you are coming with.
Okay.
Encourage them to speak, listen to them, because they have a lot to say too
All right.
as students.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. Was refreshing. Thank you so much for sharing. Unfortunately, we have another session in the room now, and I just wondered if anyone wanted to say any final words. All right. If no, we'd like to please join me in extending a very special thanks to Mrs. Reed Virtue, who has really stimulated us. And she's not only stimulated our ideas and our thoughts, but she has shared with us some very practical ways in which we can enact this stimulation. I hope that you would have gathered something from the session and that you will endeavor to share with your colleagues. It was really good having you, and just want to say thank you, Mrs. Reed Virtue. Those who are here, based on the fact that they participated and so on, we know that they benefited, and we want to wish you all the best for the rest of the session. Colleagues, thank you so much for joining us here at CTC. It is always a pleasure, and we look forward to seeing you another time. We don't know if we'll be doing it this way, but certainly another conference we look forward to. So thank you all for joining. And we just ask that if you shared the evaluation sheet, Mrs. Ridworth, you want them to leave it in the chat? Yes, you could just insert your evaluation sheets in the chat for me. Thank you so much.